Colonel Rob Maness has a lifelong record of providing dedicated service to this nation. Having worked his way up from the enlisted ranks to full colonel, he served our country for more than 32 years. He has served as a bomber squadron commander, bomb disposal technician, Joint Chiefs of Staff Operations Officer, assisted the National Security Team with the campaign plan for the global war on terrorism. He authored the first theater nuclear war plan and served as the Vice Commander of America's largest airborne intelligence wing. Colonel Rob Maness is a true American hero. This is Rob Maness Live.
To a developing story from Belgium. More drones have been detected in Belgian airspace, the latest in a series of sightings over the past few days. 3 drones were spotted above Belgium's Dole nuclear power plant on Sunday evening.
European NATO allies have logged 14 sightings of unidentified drones in just 2 months. The latest incident occurred above Belgium's Klein-Brogel Air Base, reportedly home to U.S. tactical nukes. The unmanned drone reportedly hovered over a Belgian tactical fighter aircraft base for 2 nights, from November 1st through November 3rd. The incident is reminiscent of the drone sightings over U.S. bases like Langley Air Force Base last year. Belgium's Defense Minister Theo Franken confirmed multiple drones were spotted over the NATO-linked base last weekend. Quote, a drone jammer was used, but without success. A helicopter and police vehicles pursued the drone, but lost it after several kilometers. Similar drone incursions have been reported over U.S. bases, including Camp Pendleton in Southern California last December, and repeated sightings in New Jersey last year.
Good afternoon, Patriots, and welcome back to More War Monday on the Rob Maness Show. We're live on Worldview Tube and our Aerospace's simulcast. Well, last year when residents up and down the East Coast reported mysterious drones appearing night after night, it was today's guest, John Ferguson's expertise that helped major news outlets connect the dots. His analysis led to national reporting. But now unidentified drones are appearing over Fort McNair, the same base where Secretary of State Marco Rubio and Secretary of War Pete Hegseth live. And that is more than a curiosity. All of these have been more than a curiosity. It's a warning sign, people. According to multiple reports, the drones were detected on a single night within the past 10 days, and officials could not determine their origin. We've also seen multiple unidentified drones flying over a nuclear bomber base in Louisiana for several nights in a row, also of unknown origin. And it's reported that the defensive systems at the base failed to down any of these drones. Well, with the U.S. already on heightened alert due to the conflict with Iran, the presence of unknown unmanned aircraft over one of the most sensitive military installations in the country raises serious questions about perimeter security and adversarial reconnaissance, as we've been saying for years now. Well, Mr. Ferguson is back in the media today discussing these issues. He's a drone expert and the founder and chairman of Saxon Aerospace and Saxon Unmanned. And that's a Kansas-based manufacturer of long-range military-grade unmanned aircraft and remote systems. John is also a U.S. Marine Corps veteran and former reconnaissance scout swimmer, went on to become a deep-sea diver, submersible vehicle pilot, and global infrastructure specialist working in more than 80 countries. John holds multiple pending U.S. patents and is known for designing rugged, life-saving, cost-saving technologies relied on by major clients worldwide, including the military, energy, and agriculture sectors. John, welcome to the Rob Maness Show.
Well, thank you, Colonel. I appreciate it. It's very nice to be here.
Yeah, thanks for coming on, man. I appreciate you spending the time with us.
Absolutely.
I like to do a deep dive with an expert in this, and quite honestly, you know, I've had military guys on to talk about this over the years since we first started seeing things like over Langley Air Force Base and that kind of stuff. But yeah, I've never been able to get a drone expert that has military experience. So I appreciate you coming on. Well, let's just start with that mashup we showed in the cold open there is from years to today. And people need to understand what is really happening here. What do you think is really happening with these types of incidents?
Well, the first thing that I would like to think of is that these are just people who are ill-equipped and ill-informed with just model, commercial type drones that you can buy from Best Buy. If you look at these aircraft that are flying over, they're using nav lights and they're trying to stay within the FAA guidelines, it seems, so that would be my first hope is that they're just people who just don't know the rules or are not proper, drone pilots through the FAA. However, the nefarious side of this is that if they're using Chinese type drones like the DJI drones, they're collecting data and all that data is going back to China. So uh, that in alone is a breach in our security. But it's not unlikely that our adversarial nations who are here and here illegally are getting their hands on these types of systems, and they're probing our defenses. And so far, I believe our defenses aren't they're not doing great. They're doing well. They're not doing great.
Yeah, I mean, when we first broke the news about the Langley incident that had drones, up to 100 of them for 17 nights in a row, and the generals there, I mean, it's headquarters, Air Combat Command, so you got 4-star generals on down, and the wing commander, I think, is the 1-star at the time, were helpless. They didn't have any authority to bring any of these down, and so that's like in December 2 years ago. I believe it was. And folks were talking about we've got to get our defenses up. We've been assured that we have defenses. The McNair incident doesn't bother me nearly as much as the nuclear bomber base incident, which had multiple drones, lights off, in an area where a guy that's connected to Chinese communist companies owns a golf course at the north and south end of the runway. So 2 golf courses. We know there are defensive systems of some type at Barksdale, and the reporting is that the defensive systems failed to bring these down or to keep them from penetrating the airspace one way or the other. That's concerning, isn't it?
That is extremely concerning, and flying these aircraft that are two and three and four, $5,000 or $10,000 or 100, $200,000 like mine. If they have the ability to penetrate that airspace, then that is absolutely unacceptable. And I do realize that, and you as well, with your past experiences, that the counter drone systems that we have today are either they're going to send out a microwave pulse, or they'll send out a laser, or they'll disrupt the frequencies that we use,
Mm-hmm.
for the most part here in the United States. But the problem is what's behind that drone. We don't want to take down manned aviation or have the probability of taking down manned aviation. So, that technology is very limited. However, it's effective, but the ranges are very limited. So if they're flying that quantity of aircraft over our bases, then that is absolutely a penetration of our security, our airspace, and that should be dealt with in the most hostile way, if I could say. They have to shoot those things down. They have to bring them down. Because as well as I do, and a lot of your followers that use drones, that they can take just a standard camera and they can fly over and take photographs, and with those photographs they can do asset management. They can take a look at the assets, the personnel that are on the ground, but also they can get digital elevation models. They can get elevations of buildings down to the inches, and that is very important when you're planning some form of an attack, is to get that elevation right. I mean, your past military experience, every map you've ever looked at has an elevation model, right? So that is key. And so they cannot allow this stuff to happen. They have to, in the environment that we're in today with our adversarial nations that we're dealing with now,
Mm-hmm.
there's no other alternative but to bring those down. And if they're just people who are ill-equipped or ill-informed flying those aircraft over our military installations, then they have to be punished, because we have to set a precedence.
Yeah, yeah. We talked about the Fort McNair thing, and we'll see a clip about that coming into the next segment. But I can see that being somebody that's just not following the rules, that kind of thing, like you. But look, man, we're in a war right now, and
Yeah.
for them to be able to get over the Secretary of War and the Secretary of State's homes at this time and this day, what does that tell you about the big picture from a defensive network perspective? I mean, I'm not saying that, and I'm pretty sure it'd be very difficult to get permission to use kinetic fires on these things, but we have all kinds of ways. You mentioned a couple: microwaves, electronic warfare, netting, those kind of things that could be used to stop these. It makes me nervous when I see that of all the places, Fort McNair has a loose drone running over those houses.
Well, for two military guys talking here, I think we can both agree that somebody's going to get an ass chewing. So it's just unacceptable for those defensive assets to not work, especially like you're saying in today's times. We're in a war. We've been in a war in my opinion, we've been in a war for a very long time. It's an information war. It's a technology war. It's a war of breaking down the United States in multiple facets, and that cannot be taken lightly at all. So under no circumstance should that ever happen again. And I believe this administration is going to, I think they're going to ratchet up the tension between themselves and the commanders of these installations to let them just say, hey, look, do not let that happen again.
Yeah, I mean, as a commander of a former installation commander, I would be very happy to shoot down any of these drones in any way that I get the tools to do it with.
Yeah,
And some
that's what
bases
we're
you can
trying to
do
do.
that on. Yeah, and some bases you could do that. Some bases you can't, like the Los Angeles Space Force station there. It'd be very difficult to do that because it's surrounded by a urban area and those kind of things. But most of our bases do have open spaces around them, especially the Air Force bases. And we ought to be able to authorize these commanders to use whatever means necessary, in my opinion.
Well, I agree, and I'm going to make a very bombastic statement. But we here in the United States, we have not suffered an actual military invasion in well, quite a few years.
Hmm.
And with the adversaries that we have now in today's world, I think the United States is going to have to prepare themselves for attacks on our homeland. I mean, that's just the environment that we're in, and these drones are absolutely an amazing asset to use as an offensive posture. The media has it wrong, by the way. These drones don't cost 40, $50,000. I can build that Shahed drone for way less than $20,000, right?
Hmm.
So it's a very low cost asset, and it's a very concealable asset. So again, I know it's a very bombastic statement to state that there could be potential attacks here in the United States, but look around the world. Almost every other nation around the world is being attacked in some way, shape, or form, and we're the only ones that aren't. I think it's coming, and I don't want to stress people out by saying that, but I would love for you to agree or disagree with me.
I think the United States government should be preparing the American people very publicly
Yeah.
that this could happen and is probably going to happen in some form or another before all this is over, even after it's over, because that the second 9/11 attack on the Twin Towers was the second attack on the Twin Towers because they failed on the first one. And they have very, very long memories. And we're hearing from open source intelligence that the Al Qaeda guys are back in business, and they're trying to recreate the Bojinka airport attack that failed, and that was like 30 years ago. So, yeah, we need to be honest with the American people. The American people are part of our defensive network as designed by the founders, quite frankly. And if the government's hiding things that we don't need to hide from them and not publicizing things that we need to publicize, then something is very, very wrong. We got to take a break, John. When we come back, we'll see that clip about Fort McNair. And I want to talk to our guest about what he sees as a person that produces unmanned aircraft for military and civilian purposes, what he sees as what the enemy is trying to get out of these efforts over our installations. We'll be right back with John Ferguson. It's More War Monday.
Washington Post reports U.S. officials detected unidentified drones above an Army base in Washington, where Secretary of State Marco Rubio and Pentagon Chief Pete Hegseth live. The Post says officials have not determined where those drones came from. The drones over Fort McNair have reportedly prompted officials to consider relocating Rubio and Hegseth. Pentagon's not confirming or denying the reports.
Welcome back to the Rob Maness Show. It's More War Monday, and once again, ladies and gentlemen, the subject is about drones. We're currently in a war with the world's most prolific state sponsor of terrorism, and we know that there are more than 1,000 Iranian agents inside this country that we saw come through in the Biden administration. Some have been captured, some have not. We know there are over 100,000 Chinese military-age males that came into this country under the Biden administration. We know that the former national director of the National Counterterrorism Center testified that there were 18,000 potential terrorists from Islam inside the country, and not all of them have been captured or are being monitored. So these drones, all of a sudden, over our military installations, especially the sensitive ones, are very, very critically important. My guest today is John Ferguson, who is a Marine Corps veteran, plus he builds unmanned aircraft through Saxon Unmanned, his company, and for military and civilian purposes, I assume, John. So what is it that you mentioned a couple of them when we were talking about the DJI drones, but from a military perspective, when you're designing a drone for reconnaissance, what are the types of things that the enemy is likely to be looking for through those systems?
Well, they're very simple. You know, the aircraft are very inexpensive to build, and so they're going to build them with very low cost components. And if they happen to lose them, then it's not a big deal, right? You got 10,000 more behind it. But you know, these aircraft can carry 5, 10, 15, 20 pounds of payload, and you know yourself that you know, a pound of an explosive well placed could bring down a small building, right? So just imagine what 15 or 20 pounds of payload imagine what that will do to a building or an area here in the United States. So again, they're going to be looking for our critical infrastructure as far as water treatment plants, you know, nuclear facilities, military installations. But the big thing that they're going to want to do is they're going to want to spread terror. They're going to want to terrorize the American people. And if I may, I would like to pivot just a bit here. You know, last year in 24, 25, I had kind of broken the back of the Biden administration and not telling the truth about what those drones were looking for, and looking for a nuclear warhead. And if you remember, possibly that the Pentagon had come out in the 90s with a report stating that there was a nuclear warhead that they felt was here in the United States. And the two gentlemen that I've been working with, we just turned over information to the administration last week. The the information that shows all of the missing links on that report. So not only is there one nuclear warhead here in the United States for sure, there's probably a 99% probability that there is another one here. And so what we did is we turned over all of the information that we've been collecting for the past few years on who had it, where it came from, how it got here. And I can tell you that the Iranians had their fingerprints all over it. I don't want to, again, I don't want to fearmonger, but it was information that was very well received from the administration last week because we actually gave them hard, solid evidence. So, in addition to that, I spent a lot of years south of the border and on the border fighting narco terrorism, human trafficking, and child sex trafficking.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of the people that we had ran into on the southern border were these Iranians, and they were not here to do us any good. And I have nothing against the Iranians. I've been to 87 countries around the world. I've worked with some of the most wonderful people in the world. Iranians are wonderful people, so I'm not disparaging them at all. But those that do not like us, they are here. And in addition to that, there were shipping containers that were brought over from the southern border that were brought to Iranian truck drivers that are distributing these shipping containers all around the United States, full of a lot of bad stuff for us. So again, this isn't conspiracy. This isn't any tinfoil hat crap. This is actual fact. And I had turned that information over to the absolute highest levels of the administration that I could. And that is not being taken lightly. And I'm sure you've probably heard of some of that as well. But the Iranian threat we have right now is valid. And that's why I say that the American people need to brace themselves that there are going to be some bumpy roads ahead unless President Trump and this administration can knock this conflict on the head right now. And I would love for you to agree or disagree with me.
Yeah, I mean, I can't speak to the presence of loose nuclear warheads inside the United States. I don't have any access to any intelligence where I could either confirm or deny that. But what I can say is that I agree with you. There are Iranians in the country. They've been coming in with the help of the Venezuelans, the cartels, for some time now. I can say that if there are shipping containers, like as you say, then the descriptions of those shipping containers should be given to the public to be on the lookout, especially around our military bases and around places where Americans gather in large gatherings. Or March Madness is going on right now, for instance. The baseball, the World Baseball Championship just ended. So there's lots of opportunity there. We've used airborne systems to sniff for nuclear material for quite some time now. From a drone perspective, kind of staying on the subject of the Iran war, are there drones that are capable of doing that same mission? I mean, when I was doing it as an EOD tech, it was a manned type of aircraft, and the equipment was carried by that. But are there drones capable of doing that kind of mission with the range that would be needed to, say, get into the interior of Iran?
I'm sorry. What more specifically are you asking me? Just so I make sure I answer it properly.
Are there drones that have the detection capability for nuclear material that we could use to hunt down the nuclear material that we know the Iranians still have? They admitted to Steve Witkoff when they first sat down with him that they had enough material to build 11 warheads. Is what I think the guy told him, which is, in my mind, would be the reason the president pulled the trigger on this operation. But is there a drone that has the range enough to be able to get deep into the interior where we think we know that type of material is being hidden?
The technology it does exist. I believe, I could be wrong, but I think it's Teledyne that build a sensor that can detect radioactive material.
Mhm.
Give you an example. We have methane gas detection systems on our aircraft, and we've actually done this, but gone over to Europe and flown over what were thought to be mass graves, and were able to detect, from World War II, but we were able to detect the methane that's still being off-gassed by these mass graves. So, when you're measuring parts per million, then,
Mhm.
it's incredibly sensitive. And yes, there are radioactive material sensors that can be installed on aircraft and go do that mission. Now, as far as getting deep into the interior of an adversarial nation, that would be pretty challenging. But at least here, home domestically, we could have those sensors on aircraft here in the United States
Mhm.
and continuously monitoring, what's on the ground. So, but
Do you think
sorry, go ahead.
what it do you think it's possible that that type of technology has been miniaturized enough that the adversaries that are flying these drones over, like the nuclear bomber base, are looking for the same thing to see if there is nuclear presence at a certain location on the airfield?
Yeah, absolutely. Again, these systems are very small. I mean, they're less than 5 pounds.
Mhm.
5 pounds is a pretty average payload size for one of the mid to larger size aircraft. So they absolutely have that compact technology that can actually engage in those types of missions. So and again, like I'll give you an example. Just a standard Sony camera on a drone, or a camera that's on the
Mhm.
the Chinese drones that we use here a lot in America. We can fly over these installations, and we can take screenshots of the ground, and we can pull those images all together through color matching and uh, the coordinates on the
Mhm.
backside of the image, right? You can match all of that together, and we can give you the X, Y, and Z axis of any building or mound or pond or even a Coke can. You can put a Coke can in the parking lot, fly over it, map it, and then tell the X, Y, and Z axis. And then we can also tell you the volume that it takes to fill up that Coke can. So all of this intel, and coupled with, radioactive sensors that can detect this material, you put all of that together in a data package, and you just have so much incredible intelligence that we've never had in the history of warfare in the United States.
Mhm.
So drones are absolutely a force multiplier exponentially in so many areas, in battle planning, battle execution,
Mhm.
post-battle assessments. I mean, it's scary what these damn things can do, and you can just go do that basically off of a drone you can order off of Amazon,
Yeah. Yeah, and the DJI drones, the Chinese drones, which are really from a commercial, uh, I don't want to say entertainment perspective, but from a civilian, purely, civilian individual perspective, there you mentioned that they're passing information back to the Chinese. Is
Yeah.
that a continuous stream, some type of data link? How do they do that? Through Wi-Fi?
Yeah, I don't want to. I haven't gotten into the weeds with that, but I'll tell you what I do know. I just don't want to give any misinformation. But when you
Mm-hmm.
fly over and collect data using one of those aircraft,
Mm-hmm.
that aircraft will take on that data on board the aircraft, and that also will radio down to your ground station, right? Your handheld.
Yeah.
But when you update that aircraft, or when that aircraft goes into a Wi-Fi area, then all of that data will be transmitted back to through the software back to China. So that's one of the things that the Biden administration and the Trump administration both had worked on, was getting those things out of here, and they pretty much have done it to this day, even though you can still buy them. But
Mm-hmm.
that all of that data goes back to China. And, even in flash sticks and crazy things that you have, they've been caught taking
Mm-hmm.
resistors or capacitors or something along those lines, that they look like a resistor or a capacitor on a printed circuit board. But when you
Mm-hmm.
tear them apart, you look into it, it's a freaking transmitter.
Yeah.
disguised as a capacitor, right? So,
Hmm.
so all of that data will hook into the Wi-Fi or cell signal, and it'll transmit all that data, and there's nothing you can do about it. So basically, the Chinese have almost the whole damn world mapped through those things because they are the biggest supplier of, you know, hobby
Hmm.
grade commercial drones in the world.
Yeah, they absolutely are. People love them. The people that I've talked to, and I've hired contractors to look at my roof shingles. Guy shows up with a DJI drone. He loves the thing.
Yeah, yeah.
Says it saves
I've
him a
done
lot of time. Well, we got to take a break,
it
John. When we
does.
come back,
Yeah.
we'll talk some more about this. I got a couple of hands up in my live audience of questions that people want to ask you, and we'll be right back on More War Monday.
News is moving faster than ever, and so are we. Worldview Tube brings you 24/7 live stream coverage and now real-time alerts when it matters most. Once you have the Worldview Tube app installed, exit the app and navigate your way to Settings. In Settings, locate the tab labeled Notifications. Select the Notifications tab. Scroll down until you locate the Worldview Tube app icon. Select the tab, and here you can turn on and customize your notification experience for the Worldview Tube app. News doesn't wait, and neither should you. Turn on push notifications to stay informed. Every headline as it happens.
Confidential briefing document reviewed by ABC News is disclosing that what was thought to be a single unauthorized drone flight was actually wave after wave of multiple illegal drone incursions over Barksdale Air Force Base near Shreveport, Louisiana for nearly a week. The document called those incursions a significant threat to public safety and national security. Between March 9th and March 15th, the document said Barksdale security forces observed multiple waves of 12 to 15 drones operating over sensitive areas of the installation, which houses the Air Force's Nuclear Command and B-52 bombers. A spokesman confirmed Barksdale Air Force Base detected multiple unauthorized drones operating in our airspace during the week of March 9th. The spokesman said we are working closely with federal and local law enforcement agencies to investigate these incursions. The drones were unlike what's commercially available. They were high-tech, with a much longer range and are resistant to jamming.
Certainly, it seemed to be more than just your average drone enthusiast who just pushed it too far. It looked like this was deliberate and intentional to see just how they would react. And seeing this probe on a base inside the United States is very troubling.
These incursions came little more than a week after the start of the war in Iran, where drones have become a weapon of choice.
Welcome back to the Rob Maness Show. We're live on Worldview Tube and our X-Spaces simulcast. And drone expert, CEO of Saxon Unmanned, John Ferguson, is with me to discuss these issues today. And John, you know, that report there, what's most troubling about that is that we acknowledge that these are not commercially available drones, and that we were unable to stop them. It's just pretty incredible. Now, one of the things I wanted to ask you is that base, I was stationed there for over 8 years total, and I'm very familiar with the terrain, which is swampy, has a very large lake at its southeast side, and other large bodies of water, relatively speaking. I mean, where would you have to launch these things from for them to be undetected from a launch perspective?
Well, you know, that report is very damning, and with it depends on if it's a multicopter or a fixed wing type drone. If it's a multicopter drone, you only have a few miles of range on those, and you fly them in areas where the trees will block the point-to-point communications. Then you know you suffer the probability of losing that aircraft. But you can literally launch them from anywhere. If they're fixed wing drones, then you would certainly need if they're smaller fixed wing drones, then you can hand launch them. But the thing is that these aircraft, it's the FAA regulations state that you have to use a little module called Real ID, so that way the law enforcement can identify those aircraft. If they are flying in no-fly zones and they're flying more technologically advanced aircraft systems that do not have the real ID, they're flying with their lights off, then it's very obvious that those are nefarious and that they're testing, the weaknesses in our our infrastructure. So you just don't. If it's a multi-copter, you can just literally launch it on a street under cover, and you could fly through, an opening, and it just takes nothing to launch these things. So I'd say we've got a lot of work ahead of us if this happened,
Yeah, and it
especially with
wasn't
that
in that
quantity.
it wasn't in that report, but there is some reporting that at least some of these were fixed wing with about a 4 to 5 meter wingspan. That would need a little bit of runway room, more than likely. Even if it's launched off of a rocket motor type stand, you'd still be able to see it somehow. And they've been flying them at night. Well, we got live audience questions. Let's go ahead and take a couple of questions there. Go ahead. Shell is our host over there. Go ahead, Shell.
We have Wib, sir.
Thank you, Shell. Thank you, Colonel. Thank you, Mr. Ferguson. My question is a little bit more pedestrian. I would like to know, how are drones organized in our military? Are they an air unit, cyber unit, military police unit? And could that organization be what's limiting us and not keeping us from being successful in defending ourselves?
Well, I believe personally, that the FAA has a very taxing job ahead of them that they've been working on. They're trying to figure out how they can integrate these into our airspace. And, the military itself, they still have to follow the FAA regulations unless they're in a controlled environment on a military base. So there are a lot of different avenues for these drones to be integrated into our military. So we're even down to small squad level, fire team levels, which is 3-4 men, or up squad levels 14 men, or platoon levels at 30 men, or men or women, right? So then there are larger organizations within the military that just are dedicated drone organizations. So I'm hoping I'm answering your question, but the problem that we're having is that the airspace is so full that we can't just integrate these aircraft into our commercial airspace, even if it's military or not. So we're actually tripping over our own feet, if I can say that. Did I answer that question okay?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, just to go to the organizational aspect of it, look, even in the mid 2000s, the last time I was deployed to a unnamed Air Force base in the Middle East, our security forces folks were using handheld drones already.
Yeah.
They weren't quadcopter; they were fixed wing. You kind of throw them to launch them, but they would use them especially at night with an IR type transmitting camera to look for infiltrators, people trying to get through the wire, and those kind of things. I would assume that these drones are being integrated down to the squad, at least the squad level, using squad as a generic term, not necessarily just a ground force, but down to that 8-man, 8-person level unit, because they're so prolific,
Yeah, and backpackable drones are, so readily available now, and again, I would take it one step further and say it can even go down to fire team level. I mean, fire team of 3 or 4 men, you're again, it's a force multiplier, so you have to have that to get your battlefield intelligence, so that we can bring our men and women back home safely.
Yeah, and on a first responder basis, I mean, law enforcement's got them. If you have a wildfire out, say at Barksdale Air Force Base in Louisiana, the force catches on fire sometimes. Some of those first responders are going to have drones too. We use drones in the oil and gas industry, the shipping industry, their air, their surface, their subsurface, marine drones. I mean, the dang things are everywhere. So
Absolutely.
And that's part of the issue, I think, is you were saying we're stepping on ourselves a lot of the times, and here at home, that causes me concern because these nefarious actors can hide themselves in this virtual web, airborne web of these unmanned vehicles, those kind of things. So we got one more question. I want to go ahead and take that real. Go ahead, Sean.
We have Deb, sir.
Thank you. I have a question. I hope it's not a stupid one, but I want to ask it. Is there anything in the works to either get these drones to be detected via a tower in the area, especially on military bases, or even cell phone towers? Is there anything like that we can detect these drones?
That's a wonderful question. And right now, we have two different types of autopilots. Let's just limit it to two, okay, for the sake of this conversation. So you have the DJI drones, which have the real ID built into them. And then you have the drones like what I use, which is like what we call an orange or blue or black cube, okay? That does not have those safety features built into it. But what it does have is it has an ADS-B. Now, what that ADS-B does is it allows us to see manned aviation when we're flying, but manned aviation cannot see us. And these aircraft they're so small, the radar signature is so small that they're pretty much undetectable, right? And so that's a problem. The ADS-B in and out being on an aircraft would be the ultimate way to go, but there are, FAA issues why they can't allow that to happen right now. Okay. So unfortunately, standard or typical radar systems will have a more difficult time trying to locate these types of these small unmanned aircraft. What we do have is we do have counter drone technologies that are specifically designed to combat drones. And that's the problem that we're talking about right now, is because if those counter drone systems did not detect these aircraft, then we're in trouble. We've got to get better, and we've got to get better now, today, not tomorrow. So I hope that answered your question.
Yeah, I think
Yes.
so. I think so. Did you have more?
Oh, no, I'm good. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you
Thank
guys
you.
thank you guys for the questions. It's one of the things I like about this show is we have the ability to bring in the audience and let them ask us questions. John, let's get back to the war. How has drone warfare, from your perspective as somebody that now produces, how has warfare changed since, especially since the Russia-Ukraine war started with this drone activity? What has it done to war?
That's a fantastic question. I'm certainly not a fan of any war in the year of 2026, but I can tell you that Russia and Ukraine have absolutely revolutionized the entire battlefield from day one. So they have proven that drones are absolutely a force multiplier, and you can take a $2,000 drone and you can wreak havoc on the battlefield with these systems. But take unmanned aircraft and dropping grenades or heavier artillery pieces or artillery rounds or whatever throughout these drones is just absolutely insane. And now they're using fiber optic drones because of the counter drone capabilities. Like, you can go on the internet, look at fiber optic drones, and it looks like a whole city or a small village is completely covered in a spider web. It's not a spider web, it's the actual fiber wire. So you cannot intercept these drones because all of the communications is done through fiber. So again, they have done an amazing job of proving to the world how important drones really are, but they have also done a very good job of proving to the world how you can knock the shit out of the United States and not have any recourse. So again, we're not there yet. We're getting there. There's a lot of wonderful companies out there that are on top of this, and that are trying to combat this technology. They're doing great, but we have to do more. And I'll tell you this, and this is going to be probably one of those bombastic statements, but
Let me stop you right there. Let me let you say that after the break, because I got to take a break. I'm up against a hard break here. But that's exactly what we're going to talk about is defenses and where we're at and where we need to go. Be right back with John Ferguson.
You woke up with a sore throat and a low-grade fever. You know you are getting sick, so here's your choices. You can get sicker and miss work, try to see a doctor this week, or sit hours in a crowded waiting room at urgent care.
I have a smarter option for you. Open your medical emergency kit. Match your symptoms to doctor-recommended prescription in your booklet and take the right meds now and get well faster.
This is not a first aid kit. It's like having an urgent care in your home. It includes doctor-prescribed medications to treat over 39 medical issues like respiratory infections, strep throat, pneumonia, UTIs, and more.
No waiting to see the doctor and no standing in line at the pharmacy. It's right here.
Every home should have at least one medical emergency kit, and here's how to order.
Go to worldviewhealthcare.com. Your kit to treat dozens of common and serious illnesses is rushed to your door. worldviewhealthcare.com. That's worldviewhealthcare.com.
The emergency kit available at worldviewhealthcare.com. Make sure you don't have to go to urgent care. I got pneumonia. I didn't have to go. I took this last year. Stayed at home, went to bed.
At a time where conventional warfare tactics could prove ineffective, this anti-drone device could be what makes the difference on the battlefield.
Welcome back to the Rob Maness Show. It's More War Monday, and we're talking about the drones still. This is a complex issue, and it's one that deserves all of our attention, even us civilian Americans, because we have a responsibility to and a duty and a right to defend our country. So it's imperative upon us to know as much as we possibly can about these adversaries that are using these devices to at least surveil our military installations and our entire society, quite frankly. And my guest today is the CEO of Saxon Unmanned, which manufactures drones, John Ferguson, and a Marine Corps veteran. John, you were about to make another one of those bombastic statements before the break.
Yeah. Well, it's not so bombastic, but you know, the Chinese, you know, they fund their government funds their drone development, and they've spent billions. And you know, I would love for President Trump to be watching this and have him put me in charge of the drone side of the United States, because I can build up one hell of a system for this country, and I absolutely do mean that. But you know, the U.S. government needs to invest and a lot more money into this technology. I mean, China's put billions into their drone development, and there's no one that can compete with them on the you know, on the smaller commercial side, enterprise type drones. They're just great drones, you know, very simple. But we as a country, our administration needs to invest into the manufacturing here. We're doing it a little bit, but not much. But you know, if President Trump were to put me in charge of the drones in the United States, I would absolutely take a budget, and I would give every single manufacturer in the United States, I would give them a budget and say, build me this. And I guarantee you that we could build most badass drone country in the world. We could supersede China. And one of the things that we had developed years ago was we have an aircraft uh, communicating with what we call a USV, unmanned surface vehicle. And then we also developed through one of our partners had developed what I call a USSV, which is an unmanned subsurface vehicle.
Yep.
And so it's just like a submersible that's just right below the water line. And then we also have the submersibles that could be deployed out of that, and we can communicate all together. So all of those systems will communicate together and relay that information back. So we can continuously monitor the the coast of the United States, on the east, west, and southern coast. And that would give us an early warning system underwater and also in air and on the surface. So these are where the attacks are going to be coming from. I don't believe there's not 1% of me that believes that the Iranians are going to, drive up a container vessel and unload drones off the West Coast. I believe there's 100% intent, but a 0% probability of that happening, right? So again, the United States government, the Trump administration, they've been saving all this money all over the place and bringing all this revenue in the United States. Well, you need to shave off a couple of billion of that and give it to the drone manufacturers.
Yeah.
And say, hey, look, go out there and innovate. Do exactly what China does. Take all your engineers, sit around and engineer stuff. Make it work. That's what we need to do.
I'm constantly surprised because, from on the offensive side and the side of data linking and all that, the United States has led all of that from a military perspective. I mean, we were the first to use unmanned aircraft in combat. We were the first to develop unmanned fighter combat vehicles that are going to be flying in formation with manned vehicles. So we're way ahead in the offensive technology. But do you agree? I mean, we are still pretty far behind. I mean, the little clip I showed is an artist thing, but it's a directed energy weapon. I know we've been working on directed energy weapons, not necessarily from a counter drone perspective, but from to counter other types of activities. So the technology, we have the technology, I know, but like you said, if they're using fiber optics to get these things over the target now, I don't know that type of tech is going to be very effective.
Well, again, you can shoot it with lasers, disrupt the frequencies, or use kinetic force. What I believe personally, this is my own opinion, that the best way to take out these drones is drone on drone. Because if you have a laser or you're sending out microwaves or disrupting frequencies, it's what's behind the drone that is the issue, and that's why we're tripping over our own feet. With the bureaucracy here in the United States, the FAA has a very difficult job ahead of them to manage all of this, right? But it's not that difficult. It's not easy. It's not that difficult to launch smaller, inexpensive drones to take out other drones coming into the United States. And like that rendering that you had, that is absolutely the best way to do it. It's kind of a soft kill. It's not a hard kill. And you're not going to disrupt manned aviation in the background. That's what we have to do because, again, we have all the technology to do the lasers and the frequencies and all this other crap, but we can't do it because we're afraid of dropping our own commercial or, private aircraft. We're tripping over our own feet.
Yeah, and those are kind of shorter range, like a point defense on the point target defense. So close-in defense, kind of like a CWIS system, the Gatling gun system on ships. I mean, that's for very close-in defense, almost a last-ditch effort, like the lasers. I've been observing the laser shots of the Israelis system, the counter-missile system, pretty effective because they're getting them on launch phase if they can see them and target them. And it removes the threat immediately. So, we ought to be able to do that at close-in defense at our airfields, especially, and have some combination of defenses that are both layered and overlapping that do this. You mentioned using drone on drone. I guess the Ukrainians have developed a concept to put a quad drone onto a Shahed UAV and be able to knock it out of the sky. Is that what you're talking about?
No, I'm saying ground launched or something thereof. This USV that we have, we can take stacks and stacks and stacks and stacks of fixed wing drones and launch those off the coast, right? Or we could put them on our crawler vehicle. We just put stacks of these things on the crawler vehicle and have those out in forward positions and be able to intercept the nefarious drones coming in. I'm not a big fan of the nets because it's just too difficult. But if you have the software where you can identify a target and then you can software to lock on and then interrogate that particular target, that's the best way to go. But the biggest problem that you have is physics, and that is the battery life. Multi type drones only have maybe an hour or so of less than an hour of flight time. So it's hard to be a loitering type of situation there. Putting smaller drones on larger fixed wing assets is absolutely a great idea. But the problem is that, again, we're going back to the bureaucracy here where the FAA has to deal with, and that's having 1,000-meter or 1,000-foot aircraft. You're going to have to punch out the manned aviation to at least 2,000 meters as the excuse me, the lower altitude that manned aviation could fly if that's what we're going to do. And that's a huge push. So again, battery life is absolutely going to hinder anything like that. And then also the bureaucracy.
Okay. Well, John, we've got a couple minutes left. I want you to tell folks about Saxon Unmanned and the capabilities that you guys are bringing to bear across the board, defensive, and on the defense side. Plus, I think you've got some commercial activity that you do too. So tell folks about that.
Yeah, so I started out as a deep sea diver, commercial diver, and then got into piloting submersible vehicles. And I traveled around the world, and I saw a lot of things around the world that I thought was alarming. And so when I came back to the United States, I developed this company to basically just be a force multiplier for America. So I always wanted to develop a technology that's going to save lives and improve the quality of Americans and people around the world. I've been to 87 countries around the world now. And, my big thing is I wanted to take our technology and share that around the world so that, everyone has a fair shot at just maintaining a livelihood. So all of my aircraft initially started out as just being a life-saving technology and a life-building technology. But now, with the evolution of the drone industry, the aircraft can be a lot of things now, and that is having a reliable system that's modular and being able to deploy it in just minutes is a big thing for me. There's 1,440 minutes in the day, and if you're screwing around with trying to get a drone to work, there are lives that are being lost or there's money that's being wasted. And so that is how I work. That is how I've developed this company. That is to be life-saving, life-building, and become a force multiplier for our troops so that every single person gets to come home from their deployment. And that's the premise that I built this company on.
Well, thank you, John. I appreciate your time, man. John Ferguson, SaxonUnmanned.com. We'll have you on again soon, I'm sure, now that we know who you are and we have access to you, and especially the next time a drone issue comes up, man. Appreciate it.
Oh, it's coming. Thank you so much, and I appreciate your audience.
You bet.
Thank you.
God bless you. Thank you for your service and what you're doing for this country. Tomorrow's training, too.